QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Multiple Currencies Overview. Let's get into it with Intuit. QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are on the desktop. We have our QuickBooks program. We're going to be opening up the QuickBooks program, setting up a new company file, and then turning on the multiple currencies within it. If you're working in another company file, you want to make sure that you know where the location is of that company file so that when you set up a new company file, you can go back and forth between the two files. We'll show you how to do that as we set up the new company file and turn on the multiple currencies. So we're going to be opening up the QuickBooks file. As we do so, it will typically open up to the prior company file we had been working on. Here we are in the prior company file. I'm going to close this company file out without closing the QuickBooks program. You don't need to do this. You could go to the file dropdown and simply add a new company file up top, but I'm going to close the company file first and then locate where the company file is. So we'll close the company file, which will take us back into the intro page when there's no company open, but QuickBooks is open. We can then hover over the prior file that we had, which will give us that mapping. I suggest taking a screenshot of that mapping, locating that company file if it's one that you need to locate, and then make sure you know where it is at. It'll still be here in the recently looked at windows, but you want to always know where it is at. Now we're going to set up a new company file by going to the file dropdown. We're going to go to new company. I'm going to do it for somebody else so it doesn't pull over my information from Intuit. And then I'm going to set up our company name. I'm going to call it multiple currency number 1 file because we might make a couple files here. The industry I'm going to be choosing is going to be a blank industry. I don't want any chart of accounts to hinder us. So I want to just have a blank chart of accounts because I want to set up the chart of accounts and see how we could set them up and which ones to set up will be needing to be assigned a currency location once we turn on the currency or currency type. So we're then going to say, okay, I'm going to say no chart of accounts here. Industry, it doesn't really matter which one we choose here, but I'm going to be picking an S corporation. So S corporation, it'll be the same for any other type of industry in terms of the currency, what we'll be basically working in on. So then I'm going to type in the email address here, and that's all the required fields because those are the only ones that have an asterisk next to them. So then I'm going to just hit that, and then we'll move on to the next component. So here we are all set. I'm going to go ahead and close this back out. We're going to be closing this out, and then with the home page, I'll maximize the home page. I'm going to go to the view dropdown, and I'm going to go to the open windows list. So we can see the open windows on the left-hand side. Now I'm going to turn on the multiple currencies. So to do this, first I want to take a look at lists dropdown and the chart of accounts. So we have a very minimal chart of accounts that has been provided to us. We're going to be setting up the chart of accounts and thinking about the multiple currencies when we do so. Our baseline currency, we're going to say, is the US currency. So we're going to say we're in the US currency, and then we're going to have multiple currencies depending on the types of transactions that we will be dealing with in different currencies. So to turn on the multiple currencies, and remember to turn them on, you can't turn them back off after they're turned on. Now you can just simply stop using them, but you're always going to have that field that asks you which currency you're in. So if you just stop using multiple currencies and you're just always using one currency, then it may not be too much of a bother, but you'll have that field in place in your data input screen. So for example, when you set up a new customer or vendor, it might then ask you what currency that they will typically be in. And if you only use one currency, it'll be the default currency. For us, that would be the US dollar. All right, so we're going to go to turn on multiple currencies, go into the edit dropdown, down to the preferences. And then within the preferences, we want the multiple currencies on the left. And then we want the company preferences on the right. And then I'm going to say, yes, turn on multiple currencies. Now it's going to close all the windows once you turn this on, and I'm going to pick the US dollar as our central currency. So you're about to turn on multiple currencies. Before you do, read this important considerations. Once you turn on multiple currencies, you can't turn it off. If you haven't backed up your company file recently, we recommend you click no and create a backup before turning on company files. That's a good suggestion. So we're just doing a test file here, so we should be okay. And notice we're talking about the company file. We're not talking about QuickBooks in general. So if you turn this on here, and then you go back to your other company file, it shouldn't then have turned it on in the other company file. It's talking about this one company file that it cannot be turned off in, and that's why we have our test file here. So you won't be able to use Insights, Income Tracker, Bill Tracker, create batch invoices or batch delete void transactions. You won't be able to select multiple customers in the invoice for time and expense window. You won't be able to exchange information with QuickBooks Mac or copy your company file to work with it. Online payment of invoices doesn't work with multiple currencies. Are you sure you want to turn on multiple currencies? So keep those in mind. We're going to say yes here. Not a big risk in our practice file. Then we need the test file or our home file. Select the home currency, which for us is going to be the US dollar. So these are the standard or the other kind of main currencies for QuickBooks if you're using the US version of QuickBooks that will be basically open by default. So you can choose one of the others here, and those will be some of the main items that will be set up in the multiple currencies once we add this. So I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to say, okay. It's going to close and reopen. So I'm going to go, okay, that's fine. Close everything up, and then I'll reopen everything. So now I'm going to open the home page back up. I'm going to turn the multiple windows back on by going to view, or the open windows back on by going to view and open windows. So we only have the home page open at this point. And then I'm going to go to the lists drop down, and I'm going to go down to the currency lists now. So now I have a currency list. Now notice that all currencies are checked off here as being seen. So I can see the ones whether they're active or inactive. If they have an X by it, they're inactive. If I uncheck this, these are the ones by default that QuickBooks gives us as basically the active currencies. Now, if I don't need some of these, I can simply right-click on them and make them inactive and move forward with that. And if I want to turn on a currency, then I have all these currencies available that I can simply click on, right-click, and make them active. So we'll talk more about that in future presentations, but here's kind of the main screen for the currency. So we'll get more into that in future presentations. For now, I just want to locate where this company file is and put it where I want to put it, which was right next to that QuickBooks file. So notice QuickBooks did not ask me where I wanted to put it before it put it somewhere. So let's go find it and then put it where we want to put it. And so I'm going to go to the file dropdown. I'm going to close the company file at this point in time. And that'll take us back to that intro screen. I'm going to do exactly what we'd recommended do it with your prior file. I'm going to hover over this. You could take a screenshot of it. I'm going to go find that company file and then put it where we wanted to put it. Now, as we do that, remember, you can move it. You can cut and paste the company file because it's not open. So that the fact that you're on this screen means QuickBooks is open, but you have no company file open. If you had the company file open, you would not be able to move the company file until you closed it. So here we are back on the desktop. We have the QuickBooks file on the left, and here is the data file. So the data file can now be opened by simply double-clicking on the data file, which would then open up the program and the data file within it. Or we can open up the QuickBooks program and then locate the data file from the program.